Joshua Smith here, and welcome to the GSD Mode Podcast. Now get shit done and smash that subscribe button now. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast interview. Every single week, I interview top real estate professionals that are straight up dominating their space, just straight up top badasses out there doing big things. And today, guys, we've got another epic, amazing guest. Our guest today, Brad Van Wall, has been a realtor for the last 10 years. And during this time frame, had an accident in 2018 where he had to learn how to re-walk. But while in the hospital, still out there closing deals, making shit happen. And we'll jump into that, I'm sure, during this podcast. Last year, he and his team did over 500 transactions, while himself personally doing over 100 of those transactions. Also, and I'm really excited to jump into this, last year made over an additional $250,000 in commissions with Zoom first-time buyer seminars. So really, it's first agent team leader that I've heard that's having big success with those, especially virtually through Zoom. Is an expert at marketing and new construction, and also a top national coach. I guess not even national, I guess throughout North America at this point, maybe beyond there, which we'll jump into all of that. So really stoked and honored to have Brad on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me. I know you're a busy guy, so your time is very valuable. Thank you so much.
I love this, man. Podcasting day is always my favorite day of the week, dude. And just to be able to learn. I'm a student, man, a student of the game, lifelong student. I just love just soaking in the knowledge and learning just from badasses like yourself. So the honor is mine, man. And before we get into all the things that you're doing today, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here in the first place. We were riding the clocks, pre-2010. What'd you do before, and what led to you jumping into this industry?
Great question. So it was tough, man. I was making shit tons of money doing bartending, actually, like six figures bartending, and I wasn't paying taxes. And you're, let's say, partying with super let's just picture the bartender life that I was living, right? And it was fantastic. But then, one day I was about 28 years old, and I was actually in love with this girl, and I'm like, man, I'm 28. Like, I can't continue to be a bartender. Like, I don't deserve to be with this person. And I just decided to make the transition. So I actually went and got my mortgage broker's license. And then I'm like, I'm terrible with paperwork, like terrible. So I'm like, this is awful. I'm not doing this anymore. So I got out of that. And then I'm like, I'm going to dive into real estate. And I came into real estate at the worst time that we'd seen basically economically since the early 80s. And it was 2009. And, it's tough. I came in April 1st that year. There's 5,500 realtors that were in my city. And in those first 8 months, I ended up being the top 200. So I kind of knew that I found my niche right out of the gates. But I always loved real estate. I bought my first house at 21, second house at 23. And then I just kind of took me a while to get in and find what I'm great at.
Yeah, love it, dude. So, that first year, 2 years is so crucial for real estate agents. It lays the foundation, it gives them that momentum. But we also know the statistics, and I'm guessing they're the same in Canada as they are here in the States. But at least here in the States, it's 90% of realtors end up dropping out in their first 3 years. There's a huge turnover rate. And look, if we were to break that stat down, it's really true for all of entrepreneurship, not just real. It's not that real estate's so hard. I mean, entrepreneurship is hard. But man, so many struggle with it, dude. So what did you do that first year, 2 years out of the gate to allow yourself, number one, to not be a statistic, but then to get that momentum that really just catapulted the rest of your career?
I think that I was born with something that maybe a lot of people have is I have self-motivation. And sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm my own worst critic. So I kind of came in and the first person I worked with, he actually gave me some really good advice, and I'm glad I had at the time, is he said, because keep in mind, it was the worst economy and you can get wrapped up in that mentally. He said, don't watch the news from this day forward and don't listen to what anybody says about the real estate market. And I really took that to heart, because I would sit around and nobody knew who I was, which was totally fine. Nobody knew who I was. And they were talking about how much houses they were selling. Like, they weren't really selling anything. And my third month in real estate, I sold 10 homes. And so that was but I came in and my mentor sat me down. He's literally like, 10. He's like, you should have sold 15. So here I am shitting my pants being like, every realtor sells 15 homes a month. I'm like, I'm a loser. So then I just kept motivating and kept motivating myself. And, I probably only sold 10 homes in a single month, probably a dozen times since then. So it's it was a pretty big thing for me to do that. And I think honestly, man, I think it's just I'm really hard on myself, and that's what keeps me motivated. And I tuned out the noise. The biggest advice I can give anybody coming in is if the market's bad, like right now they're like, oh, I don't want buyers, because buyers, like, people still get deals done with buyers. So I literally tuned out the noise, and I just was in my own lane, making my own decisions, is the best way to say it. Is how I did it.
Yep. Yeah. And dude, and people don't pay enough attention to the importance of mindset, dude. And just, because the reality is real estate's always trading hands. There's no such thing as a good market or a bad market. It's always good for somebody. So identify whom it's good for, and then boom, you can pivot. And, so when you jump in though, it was a tough economy. So I won't say it was a bad market, but a tough economy
For sure.
when you jump in and to do that many deals that quickly, because dude, like, we're also in an industry where you typically don't see the fruits of your labor for 3, 4, 5 months. What you close this month is usually from what you did 90 days ago or so. So, like, what did you start doing out of the gate? Was it tapping into your sphere of influence? Was it, like what did you start doing out of the gate to be able to close, do 10 deals in your third month? I mean, that's freaking insane.
Yeah, I was pretty good. I was on the phone. Like, I literally was on the phone all the time. I put in 15-hour days though. So it's not like I got quote unquote lucky, but back then at the time, it was about 12 years ago now, I guess. It was, we have a website called Kijiji, and what it is similar to Craigslist. So I was really one of the first people to kind of start on there. There wasn't very much advertising on there. So there's very little competition. And what I did is, because at the time there's a lot of foreclosures, I basically went and said, hey, foreclosures for sale. And I just kind of made it up as I went. Realistically put up foreclosures, quote unquote, but they weren't necessarily that. Get a list, and I pre-screen them. And that's really how I built my business. Is I started doing that way. And then we also had a website called WeList, which was a for sale by owner, like a ComFree kind of thing. That was very local. And I just started pounding that. And honestly, being a bartender, a lot of people had a pretty big sphere. The challenge was, as though, somebody looking at me getting them drunk on Jack Daniels to be, hey, I'm a serious realtor, was a little bit challenging. But luckily my sphere and honestly, me just pounding the phones and posting some internet leads and doing stuff like that is what got me out of the gates going pretty good.
Yeah. So with both of those, then is it, I mean, the FSBOs, it sounds like you were direct calling, direct reaching out.
Yes. Yeah.
With the foreclosures, it sounds like those were online posting ads. So Correct. That was kind of like out of the gate.
Yeah.
Doing and man, you were ahead of the curve, man. I think if I can remember correctly, I mean, I've been in the game since 2005, but it seemed like it was around 2012-ish before online marketing really started to get big. So, yeah. I mean, you were kind of ahead of the curve, with that. I mean, was it through your mentor that said to do these things, or did you, like, what led you to identifying that, that strategy before it was something that was popular and big?
I think for me, it's, again, God, the universe, whatever you believe in. I was born with natural gifts that maybe some people have, just like other people are born with natural gifts that I don't have. One of my natural gifts is the instant, especially when it comes to real estate now, I realize, is the instant ability to solve a problem. And it's just like, in Canada, it forces us to think creatively. Like, we don't have the data that you guys have. Like, it's crazy. You guys can like circle dial, and like, we just don't have anything. So it's literally made me think outside the box, where with this one, I just saw this and I'm posting. I'm like, okay, well, there's houses for sale. I'm like, what's there a lot of right now? Foreclosures, and people want good deals. That's where my mind went. So I just put a picture of a house and I said, free foreclosure list. And I talked about it, and I was getting so many leads. I remember I was getting so many at the time, about 8 months out of that we were getting buyer's agreements. And I brought somebody on. I actually started a team about 8 months after real estate, because I decided to part ways with where I was at. And it was just, we posted these, and I was like, I called my buddy who partnered up with me. I'm like, man, I'm on a gold mine here. Like, I can't keep up right now. I didn't have an assistant and I didn't know what to do. We just kept posting these and having different posts. And then once one worked, now I just had all these posts everywhere. And this was before you could pay to be on there. So I was one of the first people that was on Kijiji doing this. And that really literally leapfrogged my career immensely. So I was pretty pumped to get it. And I made some like crazy friends out of it too. Like, I was in my friend's best man at his wedding party from this Kijiji ad. So it's actually, you just never know where life's going to take you. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Love it, dude. So, all right, man. So you start popping those deals.
Yeah.
At what point, because you start doing that volume, man, it gets to the point where, like, even if you're willing to work 15-hour days, 7 days a week, get to a point where there's still not enough hours in the day to do it all. So what was that time frame? How long were you going at this before the team morphed into existence?
So basically, I was a realtor for about 10 months, 8 to 10 months. And then I started talking about getting a team. And I remember I used to have really bad panic attacks, like massive panic attacks. And my body would basically be shutting down. And then I was in the hospital one night, and my person I worked for at the time, I was in the hospital for 2 days, and then I came out, and he's like, hey, he's like, why'd you get, and I worked with another guy at the time. He's like, why'd you get him to do your showings? I'm like, well, man, I was in the hospital. He's like, well, it's still no excuse. And I'm like, all right, I got to go. Like, this isn't for me. So I actually had to take a month off for mental health, to be completely honest with you, because I was in a bad spot. And then I called who's now one of my best friends, my business partner. I'm like, look, man, I have too much business. I need help. And I met him in the real estate course, actually. So then we kind of started that off, and then I'd never input a listing. To this day, I've still never input a listing in my life. It's 12 years later. So he went and he input the listing, and then I was giving him leads and helping him out. And that's kind of where we started the team. And then we just morphed and got an assistant. And then it just kind of kept growing from there. It was about a year after. April 1st actually was the time that we basically started the team, about a year after I was a realtor.
Yeah. Love it, dude. So if we just fast forward to today, right? Really want to get into all the big, amazing things that you guys are doing today. I first want to get into online lead generation, because I know that, man, like, you crushed at this, you're an expert at this. You guys are doing a lot of business through this, and a lot of agents, they struggle with online lead generation. They think it's low quality leads. They, whatever that may be. But obviously there's, top producers like yourself that are killing it. So, break that down, man. Like, what are you guys doing? How are you having so much success with online lead generation today?
I would say what's helped us is I started a decade ago. So I cut my teeth really early. So I've learned they've had great companies. The truth is, if I'm going to be very candid, online leads mostly suck. Like, I'm just going to be honest here and put it out there, right? Like, I've tried 16 different lead gen companies, not one, not 5, not 10, 16. And I've only really found 1 or 2 that's worked out really well. And now what I found is the best use of my time is finding some of these companies that have an ISA service included in it. And then I get the live transfers, because then I'm basically looking at it like they're my shit filter. They're coming in and they're getting rid of all the stuff. When somebody wants to talk to me, I'm doing that. So I've transitioned to that now, because online lead gen is really hard. However, we're doing some pretty cool stuff with these Zooms, because I do Zooms for first-time home buyers. Those are online leads. All the leads we have are from Facebook. And then I'm also doing stuff where I do investor stuff too. So where I'm basically showing a project that I have to investors across the country, and I'm actually selling units via Zoom. Like, I've literally sold units to people I've never met over Zoom. So some people like, it can't be done. Well, I've done it, and I've done it multiple times. So our lead gen now, the strongest stuff I've switched recently since I found the Zoom seminars are my best and highest conversion. So I've really hyper focused on that, and like, I've really turned down the dial for my other lead gen. I basically give those to the team, but my best, highest uses, I just did one last night. So I did a first-time home buyer webinar last night. 75 people registered, 50 people showed up, and 18 people booked an appointment with my mortgage broker to get pre-approved. And those statistics are pretty consistent every week.
Yeah. I mean, you're essentially doing, 50 some buyer consults all in one shot.
Exactly. It's amazing.
So, I mean, was this something that you were doing pre-COVID, or was this something that kind of morphed because of COVID that you adapted to this?
It morphed, and we were forced to. We were doing first-time homebuyer seminars kind of about 4 or 5 months before COVID. Same thing would happen. The odd, like 3 or 5 people would show. It'd be snowing. You're here in Calgary. You'd have 2 feet of snow. The parking was terrible. We'd set everything up. 4 people would show up, and I'd be like, this is a waste of time. And then we started closing a couple deals. I'm like, okay, well, maybe. And then COVID hit, and my mortgage broker, God bless that man, is like, let's start doing these via Zoom. And I'm like, dude, what is Zoom? He's like, okay, well, you do this video thing. I'm like, nobody's going to show up to those. I'm like, but Canada was in hyper lockdown in April. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. So guess what? Let's try it and see what happens. And the first time we tried it, we had like 15 people on. I'm like, this is more than we got in our class. And then we just kept trial and error. And then I closed probably 20 to 25 deals from that. but then the person we had for marketing wasn't great. And then they were stopped trying. So then I found a different marketing company. And then ever since then, we've accelerated it. Like we used to get 6 to maybe 15 people on. And since I switched marketing, the most people I've had on a Zoom before is 110.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
Like that's
awesome.
insane. Like 110 people that are listening to you. And then at the end of it, we had 98 and then 37 booked an appointment with my mortgage broker. Like that's 37 people looking to get pre-approved. Like these webinars are like literally next level for myself and my team.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were doing these types of seminars in person pre-COVID, and
correct.
Then you pivoted to, okay. So, yeah. And I got to imagine you get a much higher show up rate, you know, cause like we pivoted very heavily to buyer consults and listing presentations via Zoom, and dude, the show up rate is better, man. It may, like for me, dude, if somebody was like, okay, hey, I need to come out to your house, meet with you and so forth, versus, okay, let's jump on a video. Let me walk you through this. Like, you know, I mean, it reduces the element of pressure, you know, and the being sold. Plus, you know, I got 3 kids at home, having to get my house ready for the realtor to come over. It adds a lot of extra time and stress. And, you know, it's just a win for everybody. So then, you know, kind of walk us through,
Sure.
We'll get into the maybe the marketing aspect here in a moment, but kind of walk us through like what is the structure. So if somebody's wanting to do this, and I think everybody that's listening to this right now is, you know, their ears are perked and they're wanting to do this. You know, like what is the winning structure to get those people driven to your mortgage broker through the consult? Like kind of just walk us through the framework.
Yeah, I'll walk you through the framework. So I'm not a tech person at all. Like I'm actually quite impressed. I got on the Zoom today. So like I'm not great with technology. So I know my weaknesses and I have many of them. And one of them is tech. So I actually had to find a tech company to create this. And that's what's made it more successful is they basically advertise on Facebook. What they say is, hey, learn these $50,000 worth of mistakes that you can make as a first-time home buyer. So a lot of people are like, I don't want to like $50,000 worth of mistakes. What do you mean? So then the registration, then they come in, they register, it goes into a program called High Level. And then High Level basically has a full follow-up system. So what we found is that they come in, they text, you know, we have texting automations, and those texting automations is literally what basically upped our show rate from 30% to 75%. And then we noticed that, you know, I came up with the concept. I'm like, okay, what if we send a text 5 minutes after it starts? And then that bumped us up by 15 points. So we've really refined this, and it's taken us 8 months to refine it. So they come into our program, or they come in, they register, then our automation kicks in. Then after that, when they're live on the webinar, we basically discuss it, and we made a lot of mistakes at the beginning. You have to make it very interactive, because before, my mortgage broker and myself would just talk the whole time, and then a lot of people would start dying off. But now we ask them questions, where they think the market's at. So basically my mortgage broker talks for about 45 minutes of it. He talks about why use a mortgage broker, why it's important to be pre-approved, basically different, different loans you can get as a first-time home buyer in Canada, different incentives and stuff like that. So he talks about 3 things to help. And then I come in for the last 15 minutes, basically, and I discuss why use a realtor to buy a brand new home, why it's important to have a home inspection, and basically why it's important to have a condo document review. And then at the end, we have a Q&A. And the Q&A, actually, what a lot of people don't understand is the Q&A is the most important part. Because as soon as we're done after that hour, literally what ends up happening is we basically have maybe 5 or 6 or 7 people that instantly will register with him. But then 80% of our registrations come in during the Q&A, because you're building more rapport, you're answering questions. So if you're doing it, you have to have an excellent Q&A at the end. You can't just be like, all right, thanks, and we're done. It's like, no, you got to talk to them, answer their questions. We literally put a Calendly link right in the group chat, like here on Zoom, and then people can literally just book right with my mortgage broker is how we do it.
Now for that Q&A, do you find that they naturally just start asking questions, or do you have to kind of feed them, I guess, ideas of questions to be asking to get their minds to be thinking of questions? I mean, is there any kind of, you know, special tweaking that you found to get Q&A, you know, to get more questions?
Yeah, it's starting it early, because we ask early at the very beginning to get people comfortable. We say, hey, guess how many realtors there are in the city of Calgary? Because I'm in the top 10. So it's just a question that we have. And then they ask then Josh will ask about 3 or 4 questions throughout just to, hey, what do you think of this? Then quick answers. So it gets people engaged from the beginning, because you want to engage them from the start. Because if all of a sudden we found that if you just engage at the Q&A part, lots of people will die off, and the Q&A is not as good because they're not as comfortable. All of a sudden it's just like ask all your questions. So we ask questions throughout the whole time. And then the Q&A, naturally people just, they just ask a lot of questions. And the truth is, when you have 50 to 100 people in there at a time, somebody kicks it off. And then once the first person does, they come in. So since we've used that strategy, our Q&As last about half an hour to about 40 minutes, depending on how many people are on there.
Yeah. Love it, dude. So then, have you found, because these are live, so it's not something that's automated that appears to be live or whatever. Have you found, like, and tested best times, best days of the week and so forth?
We have. So far, we found Wednesdays at 7:30 and Sundays at Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 to be the best. We've tried Sunday afternoons. We tried Monday evenings. Like, we've tried a few different things. For some reason, I don't know why, and we've had a year of trying it. We do it now every Thursday at 7:30. That's the one that we found the best. I don't know why, but that's what we found.
Yep. Love it, dude. So you're every Thursday, 7:30 p.m. showing up, doing them live. And correct me if I'm wrong, dude, but when you say, okay, your lender's speaking about the importance of loan programs, the different loan programs that are out there, and the importance of using the right lender, and obviously you're doing the same from the real estate perspective. Is it essentially just the same protocol as you would be doing if you and your lender were sitting there one-on-one with a buyer consultation? Other than you can't go individually and find out what goals are, but.
Pretty much. I think that because in Canada we have the first-time home buyers incentive, it's pretty good. He dives into that a lot, but then he also speaks why not to use one of our major 5 banks, because if you, God forbid, you want to move, your payout penalty is far different than using a credit union or something that we have here. So we have different rules in Canada that we explain, but I think it's actually more knowledge than you get, honestly, doing a one-on-one consult, because you dive into so many different options. Where if you come in, you're like, okay, yeah, you're approved for this. Then the mortgage broker just takes in your stuff, figures out how much you're approved for. With this, for 45 minutes, dives into why you want to do it. So I would say you actually get a lot more information than in a one-on-one situation.
Awesome, dude. So then what is, because it sounds like you guys have such a high show up rate.
Yep.
And you've got a high, from a show to a booking consult, booking or filling out a loan app. Do you have any post follow-up for those that didn't show, didn't complete the app? What does follow-up after the fact look like?
I am terrible with it. Full disclosure, I could be making way more money, but it's tech involved. So then I don't have a follow-up system, period. So I sell this many houses. I've never had a drip campaign. So I can only imagine my database is like 21,000. And then people like, oh, you should tap in. And then I'm like, I have to create something. No. I'm out. So I know there's like Ylopo and all these other things that I can do, but I'm like, no, I can't handle all that stuff. I'm just that technology stresses me out so much. We would sell so many more if we actually had a proper follow-up system. Because keep in mind, we had, let's say 80 or 90 people let's say 75 or 80 people that registered and 50 that showed. So that means that there's, there might be 30 people that I'm not contacting every single month or every single week that's still at interest. Well, that's 120 people a month that I haven't even touched base or ever talked to again. Just recently, even, I've got my team to call. So then what ends up happening is there's 50 people on. I'll use last night's example. There's 50 people that came on. I think there was around 18 or 20 people that ended up booking an appointment with my mortgage broker. Well, there's still 30 people that sat through my whole thing. So now what ends up happening is the people that don't book this morning's the people from my team follow up and just ask them. Because sometimes they're like, I already have a mortgage broker, I didn't really want to book something, or I already have a realtor, or whatever they're coming up with. But our follow-up has been terrible. We've been extremely successful with it. And I've had F for follow-up, like whatever's worse, F minus, like whatever. It's terrible. Like, I'm a loser. It's just not something I'm great with.
Well, the good thing is, though, dude, the conversion rates are so damn high, man, where you can get away with it, So then just to set expectations, so you got, let's just say 90 that, speaking of last nights, 90 that registered, 50 that show, 20 that booked an appointment with your lender. What is the percentage then of those that book an appointment with your lender that end up becoming clients, that get approved, that end up going all the way through closing with you guys?
I would say 10%.
Okay.
So 10%, and over time it would get higher, right? Like, I just closed somebody that, came through our program in June of last year. And then another one that came in through July. So as long as you have decent follow-up, the truth is, man, like my follow-up is honestly, it's not great. And I know that, but I really want to focus on the people that want to work with me. The challenge is, again, the follow-up's good, but at 10%, my mortgage broker now had to hire 3 more mortgage lenders to help him. He's doing 10 to 12 deals a month just from this system, and he does it in 2 cities. So he'll close over 120 deals from these first-time home buyers seminars this year alone, which is crazy. Even on the lending side of things, imagine being a lender and having that kind of that kind of database for that.
Yeah, well, and he may even potentially do more deals than you guys are able to do out of it, because those that have relationship with the realtors, he can still get the mortgage in. So I mean, it's a win, such a win for both of you guys. But if you look at this, let's just say you have 2 hours invested, total time once a week. Well, if those numbers are going off last night, I mean, that's 2 closings, two clients, 2 closings every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's if your team doesn't pick up any of the others. I mean, that's time well damn spent. I mean, what's the average agent that's spend 5-6 hours that, set up and take down of an open house to maybe get a client per open house if they're lucky, right? So, I mean, the return on time is nuts. And
our budget's not even that high. It's like $300, $250 maybe to get that many people there. It ends up being like less than $3 a lead. Like we have somebody that, because we sell the course now too, so I create it into a course, right? So I'm like, it benefits realtors all across the planet. We had a lady, get a load of this, in Atlanta. She had like 200, don't quote me on the exact numbers. She had like 265 people or something that registered, and her budget was like $250. So it was $1 a lead. She's a part-time realtor. She ended up getting 77 appointments. 160 people showed up. She had 77 appointments. She's like, she has 10 people in her car. Like, I interviewed her after to do, get a testimonial. And she's like, this is the craziest thing I've ever had. So she's not even going to do them every week. She'll just do that one, and then it might run her for 2 months. So it really depends on your demographic too. Like, we have clients in San Diego, but the San Diego person had 10 people on, but 3 of them signed buyer's agreements, and he's going to do $2 million worth of stuff from that. So it's crazy, man. It's pretty cool because they know you. Well, in theory, they know you, like you, and trust you because you've had an hour and a half. Where a normal internet lead, I'm literally just calling somebody like, oh my God, I signed up for this, but they know you. You've given them free advice. You've given them stuff. You're not super pushy. So it's by far the best quality lead I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, love it, dude. And these questions might sound silly, but I just want to ask them. So then, with Zoom, you have webinars and you have meetings. So you can show up and have just your camera on, just your lender's camera on, and then have, slides that you're presenting, or you could do a meeting where everybody's video's on, so you can see everybody. Have you found, which kind of way do you find that seems to work the best?
Yeah. So the way that we have it is it's like a video, and then I just have everybody on the side, whatever, 4 or 5 people that I can see, but we do have slides. So it's a slideshow, my lender and him, like you can see everybody's, but we have hosting status or whatever it's called. And then, he comes in, it's the 2 of us, we go back and forth. And when I'm talking, he shuts off his camera. But we do have slides. We have everything. The whole thing is a slide. Everything is a slide deck. Absolutely. And then at the end, the cool part is that we show people, okay, if you make this amount of money, here's what kind of home you could have. Here's what your payments are. But really where it kicks in, where you want to get people to understand, is our interest rates are so low right now that even if you bought I think we have a $75,000 townhome in there, after 5 years, you've paid off $40,000 of your principal. And I think a lot of people don't register because, we get asked, it's like, well, should I buy now or should I keep renting? And we just dive right into it. It's like, look, you're going to pay, if you rent for the next 5 years, you have nothing. Even if our market just stays the same, at least you're going to pay off 40,000. So we show them slides, and we added stuff like that too, because before we had a few slides and we just stop and talk. Now we have explanation slides. Again, a bunch of learning curves where now we're talking. We showed examples because we've just made mistakes and we're just learning from them.
Now, dude, have you, because you hear these horror stories of what people do on these Zoom meetings, Zoom videos, people, not realize the camera's on, all of a sudden they start changing in their bedroom, or like any kind of best practices. Also though, like one thing that can be irritating is, you jump on there and people don't have their cameras on, and it just doesn't make for the same experience. I mean, are there things that you found, best practice that you found to encourage people to, get their cameras on, to engage more, in addition to the questions that you said that you were asking, but then also to be like, hey man, you guys cameras are on, like, don't, like,
we've been fortunate. I've probably done 50 of these at least. And like, basically the worst thing I saw was like a walk by titty grab. Like it was nothing crazy. I didn't see anything that nuts, but most people have their camera on naturally. It's crazy though, because you see people and they know their camera's on. You see people lying in bed, or you see people, like, you can see people have like jackets on and they're working and they're still there. So we haven't done anything, to be honest. From the very, very first one, people just naturally had their cameras on. Now we mute everybody, so if they want to communicate, it's through the chat. But no, everybody's, I'd say 80% of people at least have their camera on. It can be distracting though, because if I see 5 or 6 people here, and maybe I'm explaining something and then they're talking or they're doing something funny or they're laughing, then it's harder sometimes to stay laser focused. But now that I've done a few of them, it's pretty easy now.
Yeah, love it. And then you mentioned High Level before. So it sounds like High Level is the kind of registration platform that's sending out the email and text reminders, but then you're actually doing the webinar itself, or doing the training through Zoom. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So my tech guys that I partnered up with, they basically created the whole back end of High Level. I don't know what they did or how it works, but they created everything, the automations. They're the ones that do all the leads. So, without meeting those guys, we're not as successful. So that's what helped. Was the big deal was going through High Level. It's a pretty powerful CRM and what they can do. And it's upped our conversion rates. And then it's like, oh, well, we do have some automation. It's like, oh, you missed the last one. Just so you know, here's the next one. So now when they're in the category in High Level, if they've missed one, the system automatically texts them as soon as we program the next one. Hey, you missed that one. Do you want to come back to this one? Then it'll also go ahead and it'll send out the video in case they missed it and they could book. So we still have bookings come throughout the week from people that maybe didn't show up. So those are kind of the systems that keep upping your conversions and upping how many people do it, because the automation's in there for you. Is it automatically sends out the replay. Then the replay, they can come in and book something with your broker. So pretty cool stuff they created.
Yep, dope, dude. And then can you just speak to because it sounds like, man, you're a tester, and testing is so important. Treating this stuff is almost like a science experiment. We get the control and the variable. You're always testing. Like you mentioned early on of, hey, like hey, what if we send this text 5 minutes after it starts?
Yeah.
And that include, like, so you're always testing and tweaking. Can you, just speak to, I guess the mindset of testing and testing and testing, whether it's with this or anything in your business, especially from a marketing aspect, which I know is a big love of yours, the importance of testing. So this is something I don't see a lot from realtors in our industry. I
think that until it's, as much as I'm terrible at technology and stuff, my brain works where I want it done a certain way. And I have a certain high expectation of it. And if it doesn't meet my expectation, I got to go back and look as to why it failed. And then I have to have a look in the mirror and be like, okay, do I have to ask for help? Do I have to try something different? Do we have to scrap it? So I keep asking, and I want to keep perfecting it, as opposed to just letting it go and saying it didn't work. I literally have to try something until it's like, you want to know what? I didn't fail. It just didn't work. Like, I have to look at myself and be like, did you give it your all? And if you gave it your all and the answer is yes, maybe I failed. That's fine. Or maybe it just didn't work. It depends how you want to look at it. So with this stuff, it's always upping conversions and always wanting to make it better, because if I can spend this hour and a half, but I guess that's why we tried a different company, is because this other company got lazy. We used to get 20 people there. Then it went down to 9. And I'm just like, I wasn't getting excited for it. And then when I hired this first company, we had our biggest one at that point ever. We had 74 people, our first one, on half the budget. I'm like, you just got to find good people. If you suck at something, go find somebody that's good at what you suck at, is literally the best ways. I'm terrible at technology. Everybody knows that about me. So if I'm not good at something, I got to find somebody that's good. And I tried a bunch of marketing companies. I spent a bunch of money, but guess what? The fact I found these people that can do it has completely it's brought so much sales, so much happiness to so many other realtors. It's been incredible. So I just keep testing everything until it works. I want it to work out really well. And I love telling people, I'm like you, I'm like, hey, what do you want to learn? I'm just kind of like an open book. So whenever people call me, it's like, hey, how did you do this? Like, I got nothing to hide. There's enough deals for everybody in the world. So it's just here, this is how I do it. So a big part of it is just wanting to be better consistently.
Yep. Yep. Love it, dude. So then, and I'm guessing that this company that you're speaking of is a digital marketing agency or type of a company. I mean, this isn't something you'd want to, go to probably just some traditional real estate business marketing company. This is more in the digital marketing wheelhouse. Is that a correct statement?
They're real estate specific though, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they only do real estate. So they have a company that does, get you leads. They have ISAs and stuff like that. What made me try them is they were the best company I'd ever used. So they were my 16th company that I tried. And then they were getting me good leads, getting me seller appointments in the house. You know what I mean? And the ISAs were booking right in-house scheduled meetings. And I'm like, okay, this company is actually really good. So I was extremely happy with what they were doing, but I was unhappy with my other marketing company that I had to try to bring more people into my first time homebuyers webinar. So I called them and I said, we'd never spoken, the owners. I'm like, I want to get you guys on the phone. I got them on the phone. And then I'm like, do you guys think you can do this? And they're like, yeah, I think we can. I'm like, all right, I'll see you on the weekend. And they live in Niagara Falls and I live in Calgary. They're like, what? I'd talked to them for maybe half an hour. I'm like, can you actually do this? Because if you're going to do this, I'm going to fly down and I'm going to show you what I want to do. And I want to make a course from it. And I went on and we locked ourselves in for 4 days into a room, came up with a whole plan. And what's made me successful is I take action. Even if I fail, even if I lose $10,000, like I bought a course once for $8,000 that I never even touched. But guess what? If I didn't do it, it wouldn't have brought me to these people. So I believe in taking action at all times. Always take action. And yes, I'm going to fail. And yes, I'm going to suck and I'm going to get beat down. But guess what? I'm pretty resilient. I'm just going to get back up and be like, hey, I messed that up. Let's try something else. So a big part of it is taking action.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Because it's one of these things where it's like, all right, it can be easy to figure out what to do. Because there's books, there's courses, but it is so difficult to figure out what not to do. There's really not a lot of books and courses and information out there. So man, we got to go through those, dude, and learning what not to do. People might look at it as a failure, but man, it's powerful, dude. Like it narrows down, it's like every time Edison fell at the light bulb, like he knew a way of not to mess around with and exhaust any time and energy in anymore, because that way didn't work. Now let's try this new way and then keep, so it can be so powerful, dude. All right. So then, with this, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the early on in this podcast, you mentioned that you're doing this for first-time home buyers, but also for your investors.
Yep.
So this has been something that you've been testing for other niches. So like if agents that are watching, listening to this, are like, dude, I'm interested in this course, man. Like I want, that sounds like you have available to other realtors out there. Yep. But like for me, my niche for my traditional business is second-time move-up buyers. Like I don't enjoy, not that I don't, it's just not my cup of tea, first-time buyers, right?
For sure.
Or if somebody is, active adult communities, or, like team leaders or broker owners. I mean, it sounds like this could freaking murder it for recruiting, this is something that translates and, can be pivoted over to really any niche within your real estate business. Is that correct?
Yeah. We started doing I did some investment ones, and, our basically our market in Calgary has been going down for 7 years until this year. It was awful. So we had to think outside the box. And, my business partner, Mark Verzile, is a genius. He came up with this idea where he said, I kind of looked at him like, man, somehow we got to create our own economy, because ours has gone down. In the GTA in Toronto, their prices have doubled, tripled, just like everywhere else. So we literally came up with this concept of, we sold buildings out in Calgary to investors across the country who'd never, via Zoom, who'd never been here before. And then that was with realtors. I'm like, okay, well, we're kind of trying this first time home buyers thing. I'm like, what if we just tried selling it, selling units? I'm like, worst case scenario, I fail, right? Like, who cares? But then we tried the first one and we were getting 6% commission flat on these units. And they were like about 400,000. So, 24 G's to do a webinar. If I just get one, like, that's pretty good time use, right? So we came in and I started doing these. We had we marketed, we live in Calgary. All of our marketing was done in the GTA in Toronto. So we did Facebook ads, buy for as little as 200,000, come to the webinar. Then I did my webinar spiel. We ended up selling just from the webinar alone. I bet you we sold 12 or 13 units in 4 weeks, trying it 4 times. So you want to talk about an ROI, our commission average was 15 to 20 grand. And you've done that. Like you made $250,000 by doing these. Yeah, there was about 15K in ad spend, but like, it's just think outside the box. Like people, and let's be honest, in myself included, like, I don't care if I fail. Like it is what it is. I want to try everything. So I just do. But imagine if somebody came to you and said, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to do a Zoom. You're going to advertise in a completely different city for an investment property that they've never even been to the city. They don't get to see it. They've never met you before. And you're going to go and try to sell these units. I'd be like, you're crazy if you say it that way. But I never thought of it that way. I'm just like, well, there's value here. We have a great product, so I'm going to go sell it. So we have used it for investor seminars as well too.
Yeah, no, that sounds brilliant. Because you look at Toronto, dude. I mean, market's so insane. Prices are so high. People, it's so hard to get good investments. And if it makes sense, man. And dude, obviously you guys are proving it to crush it, man. I love it. So then, so 250 grand last year from these first time buyer Zoom seminars that you started testing, and you guys are now just scaling it next level now. But dude, you did 500 units. So there's a lot of, this is kind of a scratch of the surface of, I don't know what gross commissions were total, but guessing, 3 million, whatever, several million.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, like, because again, man, we're talking COVID-19's shutdowns. You guys are still shut down heavily. What are other things that you've been able to adapt and shift and still sell so many crazy units? Because I'm speaking to a lot of agents, that live up in Canada that watch the podcast and so forth, and like a lot of them don't know what to do, man. They're like, hey, I can't go to open house. I can't do this. I don't know what to do, man. Like, what are other things that you guys have really pivoted that allow you to sell so many damn units?
Oh, that's pretty loaded. So I would say we laid the groundwork. Something that I actually am proud of is last year when it sucked, we did a lot of marketing. So in the inner city in Calgary, we have something called infill. So basically somebody takes down an old bungalow and puts up 2 new, like in the inner city, puts up 2 new homes. So we created a group. I was at an open house once and people kept coming in here and they're like, there's no database for pre-construction stuff for the inner city. And there wasn't. So we went and I'm like, yeah, you're right. There isn't. So I went and created it. So we created, and then we had this inner city niche. And then what we did is we laid the groundwork for 2 years for these infills, where we would find the developers the dirt for, let's say, $600,000 or $700,000, and then they would put up $2 million homes. So, you're making a good amount of money for that. We kept plugging away at that. And then Shane, big shout out to Shane, who basically runs that for me now. He was ruthless. And even when we were getting no money and no money was coming in, I just trusted the system and I kept marketing. And, my bank account's going down like this, but eventually it's going to turn around. And then now when whatever started turning around, now we're going to have a record sale this year for sales too. So it's hard if you're a newer agent to know that the shitstorm is basically going to come to at some point, right? I doubled down. So because our economy, keep in mind, it's been down for 7 straight years pretty much. So the last 2 years I kept doubling down. And that's what brought us, is I just trusted the system and trusted the process to come out of it. Because now we work with 50 different inner city builders. Well, we have a Rolodex of 50 builders. We've sold them this year alone, probably about 50 to 60 pieces of off-market dirt, which in turn next year and the year after is going to turn into 120 listings. So I already have, if I do nothing else, next year, I'll probably already sell 100 homes over 800,000 in my market, which is big, just because of the work that we've done. So I built systems and trusted the systems. And that's really it, is we went on the builder and developer side, because now we just signed a 91 unit townhome, because people are finding out in Calgary, we're doing what nobody else is doing. We're selling out buildings. Mark Verzile was the guy who had the idea 2 years ago. We had never sold a building out in Calgary in years. And then he's just like, let's try this. I'm like, dude, you're bananas. Like, you want us to fly to Toronto, put on a presentation for these realtors. They don't know who we are, but we did it. We sold out a 188 unit building to all investors in Toronto. None were in Calgary. All of them were in Toronto. We sold out that whole thing in 3 weeks. And then people like, oh, it's a fluke. It's like, all right. Then we sold out another one in 2 weeks. There were 88 units. Then there was a building in Calgary that they were going to get shut down. It's like, you have 60 days to sell. We have to get rid of 50 or 60 units or else it's not going to be done. And I'm like, well, this one's more challenging because it's already been marketed for 2.5 years. Regardless, we did it. We came in, we used our systems and did it. And now we're getting again. So I guess it's basically work we did in the past. We just trusted and had some crazy ideas that are now flourishing right now because we have developers knocking on our door being like, sell out my building for me, sell out my building for me. So that's been a big part of our success.
Yeah, love it, dude. Yeah, you're building that reputation now. It's can't remember who said it, and he actually wrote a book on this, but the title is dig your well before you're thirsty. And you've been spending years digging that well. And it really goes back to that first point that you brought up on mindset of turning off the news, right? Like not mentally, keeps you seeking opportunity. So you're seeking the opportunities, finding where the business is. And then from there, how do we connect the dots with the opportunity, where the buyer's at? And dude, like you guys are fucking willing to jump on planes and do shit that most just aren't willing to do, dude.
Well, I got to tell you the story really quick when we launched this, and it was discouraging. So I went and Mark, my business partner, was putting on, it was for Minto. Mark was basically putting on a project and he was talking to 30 realtors, right? So we had 30 realtors the next day. So we came in, we wanted to crush it. I spent like $5,000 on lead gen. I was just calling people and I'm like, you want to know what? I'm flying there. We don't even know if this is going to work. So there's a big, there's an upfront investment. You got to fly there. You got to pay for the hotel. Then I'm like, why don't we just try to sell to the public? I'm like, let's sell to the public because out there, let's do that. So I was getting like hundreds of leads in. I called these hundreds, like I was an ISA working 10, 12 hours, calling all these leads, right? Just getting leads. I'm like, okay. I'm like, we got to rent a hotel room for these people. So we had to rent a place for everybody to go to so I can do on a presentation now. Rented that, spent thousands of bucks. I got food, champagne, wine, like literally spent my nut. I'm like, this is going to be such a sick event. We had like 150 people that wanted to show up. And I kept following up with them. And then it dwindled down to about 40 people to 50 people that confirmed the day before and the day of. So I'm like, 50 people, no problem. Even if we get 1 out of 10, I'm like, the money's still there. 2 people showed up.
Yeah.
Two people showed up. So then I was there with another salesperson. Mark was going to practice his presentation. So, and Mark was there for a little bit and then he left. I'm like, so I came back and I'm looking around at like 19 million sandwiches and bottles of champagne. And I'm like, am I just going to be fat and drunk by myself? And that's literally what it was, is because nobody showed. And it's very easy to get discouraged at that moment. And my intuition, something came back to me, and we were with the owners of the company and we were with the guy that was putting on the presentation the next day. And I came back and he's like, how was it? I'm like, dude, we crushed it. I'm like, do you know how many people there were? And I told him how many people came in. I'm like, I have all these phone numbers and I have all this stuff, because I knew at that moment that if I told him that we had nobody, he goes into that presentation and he is not psyched at all. And then so after the presentation, we went out for a couple drinks. He nailed the presentation. He's like, man, I can't believe we have so many buyers. I'm like, dude, 2 people showed up. I just couldn't tell you. So he's like, dude, if you would have told me that, I would not have even done the presentation. I'm like, I know. So I didn't. So anyways, it didn't go the way we wanted to at all. But look where it did bring us. It did bring us. We sold out the building, but I had to take my licks still. Like 2 people showed whenever I was an ISA for 2 weeks. But just don't give up. Just trust the process if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, love it, dude. And look, I don't want this to come off wrong to anybody. Look, dude, it's really unfortunate that we've all experienced COVID, and there's been a lot of people and families that have been hurt heavily from this.
Absolutely.
But man, at the same time, I mean, there are good that can come out of negative situations, and this force to the virtual component through Zoom, and all of this stuff. Dude, it's but again, that only comes about if you're not allowing yourself to freak out. You're not allowing yourself to like you're staying proactive. You're looking for the opportunity. I mean, because business is always a zero-sum game. Somebody's always winning, somebody's always losing. So there's always opportunity, and you're always seeking those opportunities. And I'm curious, too, like, is this something that like you've always been wired, always been born with this crazy innate drive, and where your mind is always looking for the opportunity, or has this been something that has been learned over time?
No, I was a kid. I didn't know the story. My dad told me the story one time, and I was a kid, and I was 4 or 5 years old, and we were on the farm because my grandparents had a farm. Dad I was 5 years old, and I looked at him up one day at him, and I said, Dad, I said, one day I'm just going to pay somebody to do this. And that's the kind of way it was, is I had an entrepreneurial, I guess, spirit as a kid, where I was 4 years old and I played this game with the kids around the kids around my cul-de-sac. And my mom came out one Saturday morning. There was about 7 or 8 kids, and they were playing what's called find the golf ball. So these kids are trying to find the golf ball everywhere, and they're all looking around. And then my mom comes in. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, we're playing find the golf ball." And the kids find the golf ball. And then she's like, "Well, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm charging him 25 cents to find the golf ball." And my mom's like, "Brad, a golf ball is worth more than 25 cents." And I looked at her like she was stupid. I'm like, "Mom, it's 25 cents to play the game." So I was charging the kids to try to get money just to play this game. So I've just kind of always been naturally stubborn. My mom one day, like I had training wheels, and she's like, "I'll buy you a new bike whenever you're off your training wheels." Within 30 minutes, I came back in and I had a bruise and I was cut and everything. I'm like, "Hey, let's go get a bike." She's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, I don't need my training wheels. I actually went and bent them up so I couldn't use them anymore and I could ride my bike. So I think that some people are just born with certain gifts, as I mentioned earlier on. And mine's just the persistence to do whatever it takes to win.
Yep. Love it, dude. Love it, man. So 2018, dude, you find yourself in an accident, wind up in the hospital, having to learn to rewalk.
Yeah.
But dude, at that point, man, you built this team, and you built a company that, probably still relies on you to go out there and grow and expand and to operate at the high level that it does. How did you do that, man? Because that's one of those things that most of us don't plan for, those scenarios and situations, and then, I mean, obviously none of us really plan for it happening, right?
Yeah.
And it can take us, blindside us. Walk us through that. Like what happened, dude, and how did you navigate through it and continue, going through this wall, having to go through this challenge of relearning to walk and so forth?
Yeah, I will probably get a little bit emotional, but it's all good. I do this on many podcasts. I've cried probably 100 times on 100 different podcasts and stuff, but it was challenging. So I hit my head in hockey. Being Canadian, obviously, you play hockey. And I smoked my head, and then I remember a few days later, it got worse and worse. And then I remember I went in and I got a CAT scan done, and then they're like, "Well, you either have a brain bleed or a brain tumor." And then literally the doctor walked out. And my girlfriend at the time, who's now my fiance, she went around with them. She's like, you can't leave somebody with that and just leave. Like you gotta figure it out. So make a long story short, it ended up getting worse. I did have a brain bleed. I ended up being in the hospital for 4 weeks. And at the time I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk, literally shit myself. Like it was like, it's, if anybody's been in the hospital for more than 2 days, it's challenging. It was 4 solid weeks, and you're laying in that bed and I just always remember that. I remember like I couldn't stand. So my fiance is actually like holding me up, trying to shower me. And I'm thinking, is this it? Like, is this it? Like, I'm not going to have it. My team's come to visit me. They were strong, but then they were bawling behind. I found out after everybody's crying because I thought I could talk normal. I didn't know. I was out of it. Right. So, sold 6 houses from my hospital bed, just for the record, not remembering any of it. So I kind of came in, and that's kind of the joke. The team is like, that's just the way I am. And then it was really tough, and you had to relearn, but it really made me rethink my business, where I'm like, man, if I stop selling homes, I'm done. Like I don't have any income coming in. So I think that was where I looked to change my business, where I wanted to have more relationships of stuff that's coming in, where a developer, I go out, sell at a building, something happens to me, those commissions are coming in, I can sell a building. I think that's where my mind really started to be like, okay, God forbid, because it can happen again, right? Now that's happened once. If I just smoke my head a little bit, I could be lights out. And I remember when I came out, I couldn't walk and I couldn't talk, because where the brain bleed was, they couldn't do surgery. And if they did surgery, I had a 90% chance of being paralyzed. So I took my chances. If it would have got worse, I thank God I didn't have to make that decision. But then whenever I got out, I remember doing rehab. And again, everybody has their story, whatever it is. Like I'm an open book. Like I talk about my mental health issues, like all that stuff, right? Because I just want one person. If somebody listens to this, it's like, hey, that guy can do it. That guy can talk to somebody. Like I see a therapist every 2 weeks. I don't care. It helps me out, right? That's something I do. So I'm a big advocate for that. And with this one, my mental health obviously wasn't the best at that time because of what's going on. And I just powered through it, man. Like I'm pretty stubborn when it comes to that stuff. Like I'm not a stubborn person overall, but like when it comes to wanting to accomplish something, and I'll never forget, and I'm pretty thankful now for where I'm at. I'll never forget. I went for my first rehab and I literally got out of my wheelchair and I sat down on the bed. I stood up and I sat back down and I stood up and I sat back down and I was gassed, done. I went back to my bed and I couldn't do it. And then they looked at me and I had a really important Disney trip in 5 weeks with my family, my whole family, my fiance, my dad, and them. They're like, you're not going to be able to do it. And I said, well, because of my brain injury and the brain bleed, will I die if I get on a plane? And he's like, no, you won't die. And he signed something off. And within 5 weeks, I couldn't walk from here to like across. I couldn't walk a few feet. And I started walking my dog. I just got a dog at that time. And then within 5 weeks, they said I wouldn't be able to walk or talk or do talk a little bit, but I wouldn't be able to walk or do anything. Because my whole left side and my whole right side was numb, like I had a stroke, both sides. So it's the weirdest feeling ever. My left side still is, but my right side's back normal now. And I just said, I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do everything I can. And it sucked. And I am getting a little teary eyed because I'm remembering the pain and what it took to do it. But after 5 weeks, they said I wouldn't walk for a year. After 5 weeks, I was walking 20 kilometers a day in Disneyland. And I went every single day. I wasn't the happiest around, but I did it. And I defied pretty much every single odd by doing it. So it's one of my proudest moments that I have. I will get teary. It was hard. Like, I'm not going to, it's tough. But again, everybody has their journey. That just happens to be mine. But, it helped me become a better person, appreciate who I had around me. And I'll never forget that day. If you're on your deathbed, you appreciate every single day that you have. So it brought me a bigger gratitude for my life too.
Yeah. Such powerful stuff, dude. And I appreciate you sharing that, man. You talked about like, while you're in the hospital reflecting around, man, I got to get, whether you want to call it channel accounts or things that aren't these one-off deals that are so reliant on you that can, feed the team where that's that consistent residual business. But man, like you just mentioned, dude, you reflect deeply on so many different things in those scenarios and situations. And, I haven't personally been through a situation like that, but before I got into real estate, I worked as a nurse's aide in the hospital for 2 years. And most of my time was on the hospice floor. So I'm spending just insane amounts of time, 12-hour days, dude, 12-hour shifts with people on their deathbeds. That's having those crazy, those conversations with them. And you can, see that reflection and talking through that stuff with them. And, what were, some of the biggest, changes that you made after that that you realized, oh shit, man, I got to change the course in these aspects of my life, whether it's personal, business, whatever that allowed just to be a great wake up moment. And cause even tough situations like that, man, can become blessings.
Yeah. I would say that I'd say at the gates, I'm like, I'm going to work less and I'm going to do this. And then my body healed itself. I'm like, fuck this. I'm going to take over the world now again. So I don't know if I've truly learned something like I have, but I haven't. But you want to be like, I am closer with I'm close with my fiance, closer with family. I think you have a greater appreciation for things, myself personally. And at times, remind me to be present. And I'm not great at it still, but I've gotten better at being present. Putting my phone away very minimally, but at times I think that what I've taken from it though, on a business side of things, is that at any time I could be in a situation where I don't have revenue and I wanted to create that. So again, like you mentioned, having those developers, having these builders, having a team, if God forbid something happens again for a few months, I've basically now set myself. I love that analogy of the digging the well thing. That was amazing. You know what I mean? Like, I've done that now. And if I do become thirsty, as you say, that, the well is dug, I can do that as long as I keep it. And I surrounded myself with some of the best people in the industry. Like my team, we're ride or die. Like we're literally our family. Right. And all these people have my back. And I think that also the people that I thought sucked basically. And now we just have such a good core group, this team. They've been with me for, I think the least is 3 or 4 years. One is 10, you know what I mean? Like we have just this solid group of guys that just love each other. We just help each other out. And that was something I needed to reflect and be like, I used to just hire like, oh, you have a pulse? I have too many leads. Come in. And then, it spread throughout the team. That's like, well, this person's not doing anything and I'm doing all this work. It's like, man, just, you're better off to ride with what you have and just wait for the right person if that's going to be in. But the biggest thing to learn is to appreciate life. But the weirdest thing is death is my number one fear. Like as a kid, like I used to cry all the time because I don't know if I believe in God, whatever that is, but death has always been my number one thing. When I was on my deathbed, I wasn't even scared. But that was like just so weird to me where I'm like, how am I not scared? And I don't think what's weird is I don't think I fear death as much as I used to. So that's one thing that kind of came from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Well, and it's because you're living life, it seems to be those that fear death most are the ones that aren't going after their goals, that aren't, living this life to the fullest and expanding and, becoming the best version of themselves. And, find that those that I don't know if we'll ever become the best version of ourselves, but that are seeking that path and that are, intentional, they just don't seem to have that same fear, right? No, I love it, dude. Is that also because you talked about the importance of getting that residual business? Is that also, one of the reasons of why you decided to switch to EXP as well is just that, revenue share kind of residual additional income component that platform brings?
So I think that, yeah, it is. Absolutely. That's a big part of it. I think that now we have with the coaching program and everything that we're doing, that was the big side of it. I bled Remax, like literally bled Remax because I was the number one team at the number one Remax office in the world. And I use that coin phrase when we were marketing. It's a big component, right? Am I the number one Remax team in the world? No. However, we were at the number one office in the world and I happened to be the number one team. That was my goal ever since I came into real estate was to have that. I remember one of my most proud moments was getting that done. Then I realized like moving to EXP, and I was one of those people too. I'm like, I'll never go to EXP. Literally December 1st, I was having a few tequilas in Mexico. Somebody texted me and I said, I will never come to EXP ever. And then I had a few more tequilas. And then I'm like, look, somebody needs to explain this to me at a high level. And I called somebody new, and Jay Kinder and Mike Reese, both of them actually hopped on me and kind of talked me through it. And I kind of gave them my vision, and they kind of looked at me like, dude, you'd be the only guy doing that stuff. And then Mike Reese, I didn't know at the time, but Mike Reese is like, we may have found another Jay Kinder. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but that was like a huge compliment because Kinder's an animal. Mm-hmm. So now that I've got to know him pretty well, and yeah, that was a big part of it is grow the residual. Cause I honestly, between you and I want to do Freedom 45. I'm 40 right now. I turn 41 next month. I like to be in a situation where I retire at 45. Now, disclaimer, my definition of retirement is do what I want throughout the day, not things I have to do. So I'll never retire. It's just I can focus on things that I truly enjoy. So that's my goal now. And the passive income part's going to be a massive part of it. And I can see already the benefits. I've only been here a few months.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, it's insane, dude. I'm not with EXP, but I've got several friends that are that. Yeah. Well, a lot. We all know a lot of people that are with them, but I mean, several friends, when I say that, are doing just insane things with revenue share, dude, where to the point where like I've vetted bank account statements, and because I'm like, dude, don't show me that bullshit app, right? Yeah. Like, show me the deposits, and dude, and it's I know several that are 6+ figures monthly residual basis, dude. It's crazy, dude. With that, and it can be for those that you'll want to really leverage that piece of it. It's an awesome vehicle, dude, that allows for that, man. So, all right, dude. So, just a couple last questions for you, because I know we're going long on time. It sounds like you've got an amazing business partners, partner. I don't know if you have one partner or two partners or what that looks like, but
I call them all my partners. So something I chose to do when I started my real estate career is everybody on my team is my business partner. It's even in their email. So we're all partners. So I believe in their names are on the sign along with mine. I just do it different because if I'm too busy and I want to send it to a buyer's, you get my buyer's agent, people feel sloughed off. We're just all partners. And it's got us business because people have put, I'm choosing you as a realtor. I've seen emails where my people on my team was like, you're a partner. I'm going with you because the other person that I got introduced to is just a buyer's agent. So it's just it's a mental thing too. And they are my partners. They're helping me grow my business. So I just looked at things a little bit different. So technically they're all my partners.
Yeah. No, I love that mentality, dude. I mean, because then the reality is, dude, I mean, that's 400 of your 500 deals last year. Yeah. Right. So it's definitely is a partnership. All right. So then talk to us about your coaching, man, because I know you talked a lot about the Zoom webinars that you're doing. Sounds like you have a training program for that's available for agents.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is the coaching, or if there is, I see your shirt there of, double your income coaching,
Yeah.
if there's, multiple layers to the coaching, but man, speak to us about what all that looks like.
Sure. Yeah. So I basically, the course is, we sell a course for the first time home buyers seminar. Some cities are sold out, just we don't sell too many, but we sell the course. That's a part of it. So I do coach actually every week. I coach my clients that are part of that. I teach them different things that aren't even about it. Just, how I get listings from retirement communities, or how I get listings from divorce lawyers. And so I help them with all these different things every week. Then we have a coaching program that I'm actually pretty pumped for. And I don't think there's too many coaching programs like it as of right now. So as of right now, we basically have a coaching program that's in Microsoft Teams. Everybody can communicate. Our whole organization can. The great part about this coaching program is that we have 15 coaches, and all 15 coaches teach 15 different topics every single week, but the same topic every week. So for example, whenever somebody comes into our organization or wants to learn, we have somebody teaches every week how to get into retirement communities and get listings. We have somebody that teaches how to get buyer's agreements via Zoom. One of our guys that just came in from the GTA gets 700,000 views on TikTok. So he's teaching TikTok. We have a YouTube coach. We have, we have 15 different topics. So my mind just drew a blank, but we have a bunch of them. So what's cool is you literally go in, you have a schedule, you go into the app, it's all video based, and come one, come all, and everybody can kind of learn. So it's pretty exciting. I don't know if too many coaching programs that have 15 coaches. And our goal by this time next year is to have 30 coaches that teach 30 different topics every single week.
Yeah. And you're just finding each coach, it sounds like, is just a badass specialist at their given niche. And they're staying in their lane. They are teaching them what they know, like what their superpower is, where they crush it, they're repeating that high level coaching each and every week, sharing what they're doing, how they're creating success, how that's changing, and so forth.
And it makes it scalable, because I love coaching agents, but I can't do all that stuff. So now what it does is I'm just asking people in my organization that have a specialty or a superpower, give the organization 1 hour a week. They just hop on for 1 hour a week and answer the questions and teach, and that's it. So that's what makes it scalable by having 30 people. You have 30, like we have 15 now, but we want to have 30. Is you have 30 people giving 1 hour a week. That's easy for somebody to do, is give an hour. But for you to be like, hey, I need you to teach 30 different topics, you'd be like, you're nuts, man. I don't have time to do all that stuff. So we're trying to make it extremely scalable for everybody to kind of partner up and join with us.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Now, is this something that is, because I think when we were talking off air, this is something that is it, for essentially available for like coaching clients that are, partners with you through EXP that joining your downline? Is this something that is available to all agents, or is exclusive to just, those that are with you at EXP? I can walk us through, that process. And also, like, for those that are watching and listening that want to talk to you about it, want to learn more about it, want to plug into it, like where the best places to do that are.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, we're going to open it up to everybody, actually, I think, but next month. Right now it is just for our organization, but I think it's going to be opened up at the end of May to just anybody who wants to come in and learn. And you can kind of come in, and there's obviously some parts that'll have restricted access for people that are actually in our organization, but yeah, you'll be able to come in and learn all these different topics and see how we grow. Best way to get a hold of me is, through Facebook or Brad Vanderwall, or I don't know, even just call me 403-888-7653. I love phone calls. Emails are good too, but I'm still old school, right? I pound the phones every day. Not a big emailing person. So that's probably the best way to get a hold of me, or just brad@infillhub.com if you have any questions about our coaching program or about the course that we have. The truth is about the course is that we've only ever had one person, and that's because she only tried it once. We've only ever one person asked for a refund, because we have 100%. It's 100% refund if you're not satisfied. And just go to my YouTube channel. I just started it about a month ago. So it's Double Your Income Coaching. That's probably a really good way too. And there's a lot of testimonials there and what people are doing from all across North America. We just put those up last night, actually, some testimonials to kind of see what we're doing, talks about our coaching program. So I'm not a tech person. Shout out to Ryan, who's part of my organization, for getting my YouTube channel looking the way it does. So, yours is badass, by the way. Yours looks really, really good. I love the way that it looks and how many people follow you. So no, it's good, man. just starting off myself on YouTube, and it's harder than you think, man. I look at how many followers you have. I'm like, man, I'm at like 83. I'm like, how am I ever going to get to something like that? So
yeah, it's dude, it used to be so easy. Like I never, when I started it, my focus was the podcast, meaning, yeah, we release the podcast on YouTube as well, but meaning like iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify. And that's still where we get like 90% of our listens, downloads, whatever you want to call that there. But dude, like back in the day, man, I'd throw up a video on YouTube and get 20,000 views. I mean, it was just crazy. Now today, dude, it's a science, man. Like, dude, the title's got to be dead on, the thumbnail, the keywords, the tags. Like it's a whole different beast, dude. But you'll get there, man. I mean, you're dude, like with the biggest key is great information, dude. And with your knowledge base, dude, and just how giving you are, man, it's going to explode fast, man. I'm excited for it. And those that are watching, listen, we'll make it super easy on it. If you just scroll below, wherever you're at, any medium that you're on, scroll below. We'll have all Brad's contact information, links to his YouTube channel, Facebook, social media links, email, cell number, all those things that Brad just shared. All that'll be right below if you just scroll below. All right, so one last question for you, Brad. If Brad today, knowing everything you know now throughout this whole entire journey, Brad today, like you jump into the Back to the Future DeLorean, you go back in time, and all of a sudden, dude, you find yourself in 2010 when you first started this journey. You jump out of the DeLorean, you see your younger self 10 years ago, and you have 30 minutes to talk to yourself and give yourself, a few pieces of advice that you feel would have just made a massive difference on this success trajectory. Knowing what you know now, what would those pieces of advice be?
Buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So but real estate related, honestly, man, I don't know if I'd change my path. Like, I don't want to get injured, obviously that stuff, but stuff I could have changed. I think trust myself more. Because I think I could have been further ahead if I would have trusted myself a lot more. At that time in my life wasn't the best time of my life, and I held myself back, and I had a lot of mental blocks, or can you do this, or you're not good enough, or whatever the stories I would tell myself, and the stories that a lot of people tell ourselves. I think I would have just told myself to shut up and just go, because I had limiting beliefs. I thought I could, but at the core of me, I wasn't sure. And the truth is that I was scared of success. I was scared of the success. And I'm like, well, if I get there, what does that look like? And just so many stories that we tell ourselves, like, you know what, if I can offer anybody any advice, tell yourself to just shut up once in a while and just enjoy the moment, or just go back and it's okay to make mistakes. And I used to beat myself up for the mistakes, and now I don't. I'm super confident where I'm at. I think that if I would have had this confidence in who I am, then I think it would have made a big difference. I think I'd even be further ahead. So I think my advice would be, look, you're going to make mistakes. That's okay. Don't stay down too long, because sometimes it's down for a month. And I think just trust the path, trust yourself, and trust the journey.
Yeah. Awesome. Powerful stuff, man. I appreciate you sharing that, dude. It's one of these things where it's so easy from outsiders that haven't been in the day-to-day trenches on your journey, to be like, oh man, this dude's just always, been successful. He's, it's so easy to put people on a pedestal, and,
Yeah.
to so and so forth. And, I'm just hearing that, a top producer like yourself that's done so many amazing things has those same mental struggles that we all go through, and we all do, man. And it's I know that'll be inspiring for a lot of people to hear that, dude, because I think it's important for people to know that I don't care how successful people become, dude, like
Yep.
everybody goes through those shit storms and mental struggles and so forth.
I think it's a big part to be, one of my favorite sayings is it's okay not to be okay, but just don't be okay for too long. Try to find everything you can, whether it's a therapist, talk to somebody, work out more, check your habits. But, I beat myself up because I wasn't okay. I'm like, I'm a loser. I'm this, and it's okay. But I would stay there for 2-3 months. Now I'm there for 2-3 hours a day. You just, with help of a therapist and everything I've done, it's okay not to be okay. Just try not to stay not okay for very long is the best advice I can give.
Yeah, love it. And Brad, dude, I know how busy you are, man. And the fact that you took time in your busy to be here with us and share all your knowledge and brilliance in your journey, man, it truly means a lot. This has been an awesome time, and it is an honor, my friend.
Me too, man. I love doing this. If you ever want me back, you got my number. Cause I truly, genuinely love doing these. If I could just make a living off doing podcast, I would do it because I love doing this stuff and just dropping as much knowledge as I can. And hopefully there's a couple people that can relate to this or you get a little bit of benefit.
Yeah, no, there definitely will be a round 2 and probably a 3 and a 4, man. This is awesome, dude. And again, I appreciate it, man. And those watching and listening, as always, we truly appreciate you being here. Truly appreciate all your support. Thank you so much. And again, keep taking action, keep kicking ass, keep up the amazing work, and we will see you next time. Peace.
Later.
I hope you enjoyed this GSD Mode podcast episode. Now make sure you get shit done and smash that subscribe button now.